Okay, we've been kind of putting this one off, because it was so close to holiday release. I mean, with Christmas and New Year's, this kind of the thing with all these December releases is like all these big releases come and then we have to do all of our family gatherings,
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to see Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom finally.
Yeah, we finally did.
And this is the final film of the first DC cinematic universe. And of course, we know the reboot's coming next year.
Yeah.
Although they're going to start on the TV front before they go to the movie front. But we don't need to go into that. We all know it's coming.
Yeah.
But initial word I heard on this was not very good.
That was initially, but in the end, after seeing it, I think we came out solid in terms of what we thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, this was good enough for what it was.
Yeah.
I would say this is better than a recent series of DC films that have not quite hit the high points.
Yeah.
Especially after The Flash proved to be one of the worst in this franchise, at least for me. But, this was not as bad as most people were making it out to be.
Yeah, it's not as bad. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Although there are a few things I kind of want to pick on with this, but we'll get into that.
Yep.
I do want to ask, though, if you did see the original Aquaman.
Not a whole lot, no.
I have, and I mean, I've warmed up to it a bit over subsequent rewatches, but even I'll be the first to admit that, like the other DC films, I had high expectations for it, and it kind of fell flat for me a bit when I saw it the first time.
Yep.
But on repeated viewings, I've warmed up to it a bit, and I kind of, appreciate what it was trying to do.
Yep.
But I'll also admit, when I saw the first Aquaman back in 2018, I almost walked out of it. There was this moment after Orm defeats Aquaman and Mira saves him, where they're like coming out into the Sahara Desert, like out of the water, and the way it was shot, it looked like a surfer ad, and it took me completely out of the movie, and I'm like, I want to go.
Yeah.
Because I just don't like it when jarring stuff like that happens in movies, but anyway. I do want to ask, though, what was your introduction to the Aquaman character, or when was the first time you were introduced to him? Because
Justice League. Funny enough, it was the Justice League Aquaman versus Orm, basically.
Yeah, only
the animated one.
Yeah, only Orm in that he wasn't really Ocean Master; it was just Orm.
Yep.
Because I think the reason why it was like that was because they were trying to do a more grittier, serious Aquaman due to all the cheesy depictions he's had over the years.
Yeah, definitely, and that was the one also where, he lost an arm or lost his hand. He got a hook out of it.
Yeah, he had to cut off his own hand just to save his kid because they were going into this magma.
Yep, and saved the kid, and then he himself, with the Justice League, declared war on the Atlantis that sided with Orm, basically, because Orm, took the crown for a moment, basically.
Yeah, because he was trying to attack the surface world and all the damage they were doing.
Yep.
And then eventually they defeat Orm, and then they find out all the traitors, and they're like, get them out of my sight.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a pretty good episode, and for most people in our generation, that was their introduction to the Aquaman character. Although, within that animated universe, he appeared in a Superman episode much earlier than Justice League.
Yeah. It was that one along with the original Super Friends.
I have not seen the original Super Friends, but I've seen maybe little pieces of it. But my introduction to Aquaman, there used to be this ad they ran on Cartoon Network where it was the Super Friends version of Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and they were tied up and getting lowered into a vat of lava or acid, and then Lex Luthor and the bad guys are like, you can't do anything to stop us now, Stupa friends. And then bursting out of the ceiling, the Powerpuff Girls come in, and they defeat all the bad guys, and they set Scarecrow on fire.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I gotta look up that ad, because they played that a lot on Cartoon Network growing up.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Aquaman, he just has this reputation of being a really cheesy superhero.
I would say it derives from the Super Friends a little bit more, plus maybe some earlier ones where, because it's the whole it's Aquaman. He comes from the sea, and he does a lot of fish communications and stuff like that. And it's well, what happens when he's on land?
Yeah, it's mostly that, and I think it sort of cemented this image that he had for many years.
Where it's like he's only good in the sea. When it comes to the land, though, it's like, yeah, you could beat him probably.
Yeah, because there's another friend of mine that really dislikes Aquaman and always made fun of him. Said, "I talk to fish." By the way, if you're watching this video, I know exactly why you don't like him, and I don't know what I'd have to remember what you think of these movies, but I mean, this changed the outlook of Aquaman and how we see him.
Yeah, this one, and probably I would still say the Justice League, Aquaman, still changed a little bit in terms of like, yeah, he could be a lot more tougher, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's because Jason Momoa, he basically brings this tough guy edge to the role.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this movie also has director James Wan, who typically has a vision with what he makes. Because James Wan comes from a horror background. Mm-hmm. He was the one that basically created the Saw franchise. Mm-hmm. He and Lee Winnell, they basically made Saw, and the first movie, laid the foundation for what was to come. And then James Wan, he also did the Insidious movies.
Oh, yeah?
He's also done The Conjuring, a couple of those. Mm-hmm. So he comes from a scary movie background where he deals with a lot of the supernatural or just really grotesque imagery and some frightening imagery. But he has branched out into action movie fare. Yeah. I know James Wan did the 7th Fast and Furious, and I think it's because of that experience that's what got him the job on Aquaman.
Probably, and it probably also helped too because of his background in horror, horror movies, that the villains or like the monstrous creatures in the Aquaman 2 were actually, horrifying.
Yeah, he has a little bit of that in there. That was actually in the first Aquaman too, especially with the trench sequences.
Yeah.
But anyway, I heard also some conflicting reports on the box office for this one too. Like some were saying it's struggling, some saying it's doing okay. And I don't really know. I'd have to look up the numbers again. But last I checked, it was doing okay.
Yeah.
And we did have a decent amount of people in the theater we went to.
Yeah, there was there were a good amount of people in the theater.
Yeah, there was no crowd, so to speak. But typically, crowds aren't going to show up for DC films because a lot of people say the DC image has been kind of hurt.
Yeah, from the live action films for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, animation. They're still doing okay, but I'd have to catch up on those. I haven't seen the latest one in a while. Yeah. Anyway, So I think for this one with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Yep.
When I saw the trailers, I didn't have a lot of high expectations.
Yep.
I'm like, well, it'll be what it is.
Yeah.
And I think after seeing this movie, I'm like, this, was better than the last few DC films we've gotten.
Yep.
I would say this did not end on a whimper. This, gave us a straightforward adventure movie, and I think that ultimately is what made me go, this is good. It's not great, but it's good,
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yep.
I think I'd watch this again, though.
Yeah. Maybe like one more time, if so to speak, basically. Hope, depending on if it's going to be truly is the last in terms of this universe, or if it's going to be part of the next.
Yeah, and that's actually something, well, pretty much everyone saw the movie already, but that's something I do need to bring up here, is that I went into this wondering how is this going to segue into the reboot.
Yeah.
There is no indication that this segues into the reboot. Like, they said that they confirmed this takes place after The Flash. That's what I heard. But I was kind of wondering, are we going to have a post-credit scene where we're going to see, like, Superman come in, Because Superman Legacy is the next movie in this basically separate universe franchise that's going on. And that did not happen. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, is this still in the same universe? Is it in the reboot? Maybe they'll clarify it. They haven't been very clear on it, at least from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But there's also a couple of other things we do need to address before we get into spoiler territory. Amber Heard is not... she does not have a reduced screen role in this, as some people thought.
Although she does not have, like, an expanded role either.
Yeah, she's just kind of there to be in the scenes that she needs to be in, and nothing more, really.
Yeah, and she's not, at least her character is not dead. Okay, close, but not dead.
Yeah, like before we went into this, I was like, are they going to kill off Amber Heard's character basically to please Johnny Depp's fans? There's a couple of times, like you said, where they come close, but they don't do it.
Yeah, and the 2 times came from the same sequence. The Scorch from Mantis.
The Scorch from Black Manta, his beams.
Yeah, his beams. And then when it was from him that said, basically, oh no, she's not dead. Like I have a, like a burnt up mermaid to pierce basically.
Yeah.
And he nearly did, but then Aquaman, saves her basically from getting pierced basically, or put on a pipe basically, or trident.
Yeah, and then there was one more moment towards the final battle where the Black Trident was like thrown at her, and she's got Arthur Jr. in her hands, and you're like, oh, they're gonna do this. They're gonna stab her in the head.
It looked like she was going to dodge it, maybe just barely. It looked like to me like she was just gonna barely dodged it, like kind of like the.
Yeah, maybe, but I just kind of feel like, those sequences are in there to, like, trick Johnny Depp's fans into thinking, oh, this is it. She's going to get what's coming to her.
Yeah.
And if they had the guts to kill off Amber Heard in this movie, like, there could have been a Johnny Depp fan in the theater going, yes! You did it! Justice for Johnny Depp! Yes!
Could have been, but then you also would have got the other group of people maybe afterwards, or even maybe during the theater, that would have been like, oh, come on! That would have been on the side of like Amber Heard or something like that. That would have probably booed.
Yeah, but I think, the filmmakers, they made the right call by not giving in to the controversies.
Yeah.
They were teasing us. Maybe they're going to do it, maybe they're not, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know how that went. And then the second thing I also need to bring up is that there is no Batman in this movie. Because I remember when this got announced that Batman was going to be in this. It was either Ben Affleck or Michael Keaton's Batman. He does not show up in this.
Although, if you would have done one of the two, it probably would have been leaning on whichever universe it would have been in. It would have probably answered that question. If it was Ben Affleck, it probably would have been leaning on the
original universe.
Versus Michael Keaton would have been more on the new.
The alternate, somewhat universe. But I think they're going to recast Batman for the reboot.
Yeah, so that's still to be determined. And the only sequence that Batman could have been a part of was the breaking out of Orm, breaking Orm out of prison, basically. That probably would have been the only time we would have had a Batman appearance. But instead of going with Batman, they went with Atlantis cloaking, or stealth operation, basically, equipment.
Yeah. And so this is now we're going to start talking about spoilers. And basically this movie starts, and so we established that after the end of Aquaman, where he becomes king by his own hand, he is now the ruler of Atlantis. But long story short, he splits his job between the land, because he's taking care of a family now, and he's ruling over Atlantis.
I think the job sequence is more of Atlantis, and then when he goes on land, or sea, he's the ruler of Atlantis. Land, he's just a dad at home, basically.
Yeah, and so basically he's set up shop in the same lighthouse where he grew up in Maine. And he said that after the events of Aquaman, that he and Mira, they got married and they had a kid.
Yep.
Which, by the way, this pregnancy sequence was, oh man, it was kind of jarring. But basically, Mira gives birth to their kid in the water.
Yep, basically. It was like close to like the... It's almost like imagine you're going out in like the fishing pier, and then you turn to like the left or right, and then you see like a, like pregnancy, or kind of like a child giving birth out in the bayou area.
Yeah, but it was a little jarring for me because it's like, okay, I get the kids. He's got Atlantean blood in him, and will probably survive this.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it make a little more sense to do it somewhere where the tide couldn't wash him away or something.
Yeah, but they got like people surrounding it, so they probably did that for precaution.
Yeah, and then when the baby is born during this sequence, it looks like CGI. It completely does.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they named the kid Arthur Jr., which I think is pretty accurate to the comics.
Yeah.
And then this is a small little nitpick of mine, but the kid's powers happen almost immediately.
I mean, Aquaman plus, you know, his wife. I forgot her name. It was
Mira.
Mira. So it would make more ideal sense for the kid to probably get the powers rapidly.
I mean, okay, yeah, I get it. He's got, the Atlantean blood in him. Maybe it makes more sense. But
Yeah.
I just like the idea of, like, the kid has to hit a specific age or, like, get close to the teenage years. That's when the powers begin to manifest. But with him, but with the fact that he's a baby, it, like, happens almost immediately.
I mean, we've seen it where babies, when you have a parent or parents that have superpowers, basically, you kind of get the powers and start using it pretty rapidly. I mean, look at the baby from the Incredibles.
Well, yeah, but his powers didn't show up till like the very end.
And it was still a baby though. It wasn't like you were saying, like he got to the teenage years. The baby still had powers though.
I know. It's just I just kind of like the idea, where later in life, the kid will start having powers and they begin to manifest. Because, it's a metaphor for the changes that people go through when they're at that age.
Probably, but it still makes sense just for the kid or like the baby when you have parents that have powers and stuff like that you inherently got them. And you probably are like, boosh, right away. And it's like, okay, you got the powers. All right, now we can start probably training you, but we'll start off slow, and then as you grow, we'll get more reps and stuff like that, and that will probably probably get better with their abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just kind of makes a little more sense to me if, like, when the kids got some learning capabilities, that like the powers will manifest and they're kind of scared, but the parents will help them out. With a baby, it's a little more harder because the baby's still starting out, hasn't quite learned a few things.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. That scene just kind of a small nitpick.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we do see what Aquaman does as the king of Atlantis. And long story short, he does find some of the job a bit boring, but also kind of exciting.
Well, I mean, based on this Aquaman's persona, it sort of makes sense. It probably makes sense for like a lot of jobs out there where you're going to have some section of your job where you're just like, and other jobs like, okay, finally some entertainment.
I mean, yeah, I have experienced this because I am a working person.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've probably experienced it too.
Yeah.
But I just kind of would have liked it a little more if, like, we had a kind of a more serious narration. And he's sort of learning the ropes, and then he finds this routine that he adapts as king, and he applies it as the ruler of Atlantis. Like, there's an example in a different film series where someone becomes king by their own hand.
Yeah.
They try to learn the ropes, but long story short, they don't like it that much, and then they have to move on.
Yeah.
The example I'm trying to get at here is Riddick. In the third Riddick film, basically Riddick, he becomes king of the necromongers, because in Chronicles of Riddick, he became king by his own hand after defeating the necromonger king.
Yep.
And so they established that he's not quite sure how to adapt to this new role.
Yeah.
But long story short, he got bored of it. And then Carl Urban's Vaco, he basically tells him, we're going to help you find the home of Furia.
Yeah.
And so with Aquaman, I'm like, okay, he maybe doesn't have to completely leave this role. He can still keep this role.
Yeah.
I would have kind of liked it if they had just come out and said, okay, you got your boring parts, you got your exciting parts, but I found a routine that works.
Yeah,
and they kind of do that, but not really.
Kind of, but he's still, I mean, again, when it gets to the political stuff, which, based on his persona and the character's persona, they would find the political stuff, which happens with being the King of Atlantis, very, 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 very boring. Because you're just sitting there listening to, in his case, probably listening to two people debating about something, and he's just like, oh my god, really? You can't settle this? It's like grown people, you have to come to me to settle your debate?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's just like, I'm pretty sure there's been depictions of this character where he did not get bored because, different persona.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Jason Momoa, he's got this kind of cool bro kind of persona where, okay, I'm going to find this stuff not so interesting, and the other stuff I will.
Yeah.
But I also like how they establish he's meeting with the Council of Atlantis. And he also says, well, they kind of don't really like what my idea is sometimes because they're so set in their ways.
Yeah, because it's kind of set up very similarly to how we've seen Atlantis in the past, to like the Justice League and stuff like that, where there are some Atlanteans don't like the idea of the, the upper world, basically.
Yeah, they don't like collaborating with the surface world because they're afraid. Basically, our tech gets out.
Yeah.
And could they get their hands on it? Could they weaponize it? Use it for their own gain? That kind of thing.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of weaponizing it, Atlanteans, you've already got weapons too.
Mm.
So it's not like if they, it's like if they develop weapons, it's the same way as you would develop your weapons and stuff like that. I mean, but plus they have also developed high-tech weapons that if they probably fear the same way that if you get your hands on and weaponize it as well.
It's kind of like Black Panther almost, where Wakanda's afraid to reveal themselves to the world.
Yeah.
And basically, they eventually do.
Yeah.
But I'd have to rewatch Wakanda Forever again. It's been a while. And so basically, and then Aquaman, he says this line of dialogue in the opening narration where I talk to fish. Some people think of it as a joke, and I don't care. And I'm like, okay, the movie's kind of self-aware a little bit.
Well, yeah, like we were talking about earlier, of how people joked about his, characteristic and why some people probably thought of him as the weakest link of the Justice League, basically, or the Super Friends or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you're kind of poking fun at that idea a little bit. I don't know if I would find this dialogue clever because, it feels like basically we're trying to sort of tell people he's cool, he's not cheesy.
Yeah, or it's kind of like stabbing at an old joke, basically.
Yeah, and then there was another self-aware moment later on where Orm and Arthur, they're talking, and then Arthur's like, I use comedy to mask my feelings, that way I don't get stressed out all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you just, spell out what the MCU has been doing for the past few, not the past few, but for quite some time? Because that literally felt like a jab at the MCU.
Well, maybe, but also the fact that it probably just goes back to reality where we always use comedy to mask what's happening into our lives. It's like I have to make fun of it somehow.
Yeah, and it's like there's a bit of a jokey tone here where they do get to throw in their funny lines.
Yeah.
And you got your lighthearted moments, you got your fantasy and serious moments.
Yeah.
It felt consistent with the last movie, I would say, although I did notice some differences.
Yep.
But after the opening narration, where we get an idea of where Aquaman is at right now, eventually we sort of move on to the bad guy and what he's been doing.
Yeah, Black Mantis, which is just like him trying to find something to repair his suit so he can get back at Aquaman.
Yeah, because he's still got revenge for Aquaman. He's basically like, I'm going to kill Aquaman, and I'm going to kill his whole family.
For killing his dad.
Yeah. He's basically gotten to the point where he's like, I'm gonna get you, Aquaman, and I'm gonna kill your entire family, and then I'm gonna kill everything you love, and then I'm gonna crush Atlantis. Well, he doesn't actually say he's gonna crush Atlantis, but you get the gist.
Yeah. So.
And he's got a scientist character with him who was in the last movie.
Yep, and with he fits that scientist role. I feel like in almost every movie, and plus it almost feels like I've seen him elsewhere too in other films.
Yeah, it's like that scientist character that's either reluctantly helping out or willingly helping out.
Yeah, because he has different ideas. He has like a different goal and agenda where, the main villain has his goals and agenda very differently. But he goes with it because they're trying to find something basically as well. And they stumble upon something in the Arctic Circle or Antarctica, basically.
I think it's Antarctica, because
Yeah.
I had to look that up for clarification.
Yeah.
It's Antarctica.
Yeah. So they found something in Antarctica that was supposed to be, you could say the metaphorical term of something that's supposed to be buried and not be brought back.
Yeah. It's basically that bad artifact that was locked away because it's so evil and it will basically bring about the destruction of the world.
Yeah, and in this case, it is the Black Trident.
Yeah, and anyone who wields the trident will basically be very corrupted. Corrupted, possessed by the evil that controls it.
Yep. In which case, it's kind of like the evil brother of the former king of Atlantis, basically.
Yeah. And actually, anytime the Black Trident was featured in this film, when it either corrupts someone or they're basically...
Or they connect the two, because the Trident was definitely separated multiple times, and it's sort of used to it, where it's like, you connect the two, you have visions, basically, of a potential future, basically.
Yeah, and I kind of saw some similarities between this and the One Ring of Mordor.
Yeah.
A little. Basically, the One Ring, it corrupts any user that has it.
Yeah.
The hearts of men are easily corruptible, and that's where I'm like, okay, the Black Trident, it corrupts any user that gets its hands on it. And
it does, except for the scientist dude.
yeah, it doesn't like corrupt him. So like, what, is he pure? Is he like immune?
Not too sure if it's immune or whatever, because he did see the future. He did see what the Black Trident showed. I want to say it probably maybe more so because he's a scientist and he probably has more wits or smarts to where it probably is not susceptible, basically. It's kind of like how in Star Wars or some other shows where it's like when they try to use force, but because the mind is very... like strong, that it's like, what, you think that power will work on me? I'm so and so, whatever. It doesn't work on me that easily.
There's a scene in The Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon, he's like, credits will do fine. No, they won't. What, do you think you're a Jedi with your hand waving around? I'm a Tridarian. That doesn't work on me. Only money.
Yeah. No money, no business.
Yeah.
Or Jabba, when Luke tried to do it, it's like, no, it will not work on a hot either. So it's kind of like with the scientist dude, where it's like, yeah, he's a scientist, so to speak. He has smarts, basically. That sort of like, like moral, corruption and stuff like that, or whatever, won't work on him.
And maybe if he is pure-hearted, I'm not saying he is, but if the scientist is pure-hearted, how come the wizard Shazam didn't go after him instead of all these kids?
Yeah.
I mean, that's another plot hole in this universe right there. But anyway, so yeah, they're looking basically for so the scientist character, I forget his name, but he's looking for Atlantis because he wants to basically prove its existence to the world.
Yep, like probably any other scientist probably would.
Yeah, and then Black Manta's looking, as you said, to upgrade his suit so he can get his revenge on Aquaman.
Yep. What they found was basically, you could say, the dark side of Atlantis.
Yeah, and actually, before going into this movie, I was like, are we going to have a moment where Black Manta, the only dialogue he ever says is like, destroy Aquaman, destroy Aquaman? Because it'd be kind of like in Superman 4, where the only words that Nuclear Man, the villain of that film, ever says is, destroy Superman, destroy Superman!
Okay, Zerg, can you stop saying that?
Oh, you think it's Zerg?
Yeah, the Zerg, when you kept saying, like, destroy Aquaman or destroy Superman, like, so repeatedly, it almost sounds like destroy Buzz Lightyear,
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing with these bad guys, is like, they're so, like, revenge-driven, where they're like, I'm gonna kill the hero, and then I'm gonna kill his loved ones. I thought we were gonna get just kind of a stretched-out moment where they're gonna do that. Thankfully, they don't. They do variate the dialogue.
Yeah, no. So, but, again, they eventually found the Black Trident, or at least Black Mantis did, after a sequence of monster that kind of came in and kind of like either eats or throws...
Well, it eats one of the explorers, but what happens is they're like exploring the Antarctic area, and then they crack open the ice, and then they fall through the ice, and then they find the entry point, but then this massive tentacle like breaks out of the ice and then snatches one of the guys away, and he gets eaten.
Most likely, we don't see it, but
yeah,
probably most likely happens.
Yeah, and then eventually it's still in there, but they defeat it, or at least I think they defeated it.
I think it's more of they got away.
Okay, and then as they go further deep into these areas, the scientist throws out that basically this area was solid ice, but because we're heating up the planet so much, well, it's melting away.
Yep.
And this is where I need to mention that this movie has a climate change message in it.
It does, in a sense.
Because when I first heard about this, I was like, okay, how are they going to handle it?
Yeah.
And the good thing is they handle the message where they mention it, but they don't place too much emphasis on it.
No, but they have it's kind of like a background, you could say, sort of speak. Like it still affects the environment of where it's happening of the movie, basically.
Yeah, but had Marvel been the one who like does this, they would have like said it every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then we've been like, this is woke as it gets. And then they would have like thrown in a bunch of other stuff that didn't need to be there.
Yeah. In this case, it was like it's in the background, but you know it's there basically, because you know it's because the environment is definitely changed basically.
Yeah, and then we see on the news later on, basically, you know, the temperatures are increasing, all this weird weather's happening, causing all these disasters, and I'm like, this is exactly what I've seen on the Weather Channel or like ABC World News or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they could have pulled a day after tomorrow, but thankfully they didn't do that.
No. And then, because then they had to do like 5 months later after fighting the Black Trident, basically.
Yeah. And so basically, like, the bad guy, let me think. So he gets the Black Trident, and then he, like, Black Manta, he goes to Atlantis and starts attacking.
It was supposed to be kind of like a thief breaking into a bank, basically. Or like a vault, basically. It was supposed to be more so of a, hey, let's sneak in, grab the stuff, and get out.
Yeah, they were. That's actually before the attack sequence. They're going in and they're looking for this energy source, or at least I thought it was an energy source called
Orichalcum.
Orichalcum, or however you say it.
I think it's Orichalcum.
Orichalcum. Yeah, which basically it's this energy source, and so what he's going to do with it is he's going to basically burn it all up to heat up the planet to the point where it will be uninhabitable.
Basically, it would destroy the upper, but yeah. The planet becomes uninhabitable, both the land and the sea.
Yeah. Although he could have taken the global cooling route, because they did mention global warming in this.
Yeah.
But last I checked, the Earth in its geological history has had global cooling trends that did cause some extinction events.
Yeah, like Ice Age or stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Devonian period had a global cooling event, but anyway.
But that's besides the point. So, global warming is happening basically because of him, but they grabbed some more orichalcum. But as they were taking it, the alarm goes off because I think like one of the squid thing.
Yeah, it was an octopus scout that basically reports what's going on.
Yep. And then it was like, all right, switch to plan B, which is still grab the stuff, but now become more frontal assault, basically.
Yeah, and so they basically get through the defenses pretty easily.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, because Mira, in the last movie, she said that these cannons that are on top of our walls, nothing gets past them. And then in this one, they shoot down the cannons, and it's like, okay.
Well, because they have shields, basically, and then all of a sudden, Sonic, Disruptor, basically, and then it's like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Basically, their idea was like cause destruction, a few destructions, so that way it's like a distraction to get the heck out of there, basically.
Mm-hmm. And so basically, they're like, they attack Atlantis, and they're sort of plowing their way through anyone that like comes through, but not in the sense where they're overpowered. They're just basically getting an upper hand.
Yeah. It's basically like, okay, we're going to attack Atlantis only so that way we can get like a getaway, basically, because they know they don't have the firepower to completely destroy Atlantis. Probably cause a few chaos moments in the city and then just get out, basically, while everyone's trying to repair the city, basically.
Oh, definitely. And then, like, as it goes onward, that's when Mira gets involved in the battle.
Mira and also Aquaman's mom, too.
That would be Queen Atlanna. She gets involved, too, although she doesn't really have a whole lot of moments in this movie, but she's around.
Yeah. But she tries to stop the shipment from, or at least the orichalcum from getting stolen, basically. But it was too much, so she kind of flew off, and then Mira was, on the chase, but then that's when she got to Black Mantis, but then she gets basically scorched, basically, which was this near-death sequence.
Yeah, he like basically shoots out his red beams, and she's like pushed back, and then like hits this area hard, and then she's like, I initially saw like a circular fire hole around the chest area, around the stomach,
like almost like she got shot.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, they might have killed her off.
Yeah.
But no, she's still okay. And then she gets this burn scorch area around the neck and the arm.
Yeah, but then right before that, because it's like, all right, Mantis, we gotta go, and it's like, not yet. I got a scorch, a mermaid to pierce.
Yeah, and right before he does it, that's when Aquaman comes in. He's like, "How dare you harm my wife?"
Yeah, or like Skewer. He's like, and then he's like, "Your wife? So first you took your brother's throne, and now his wife, bruh."
Yeah.
It's like taunting him basically for like, bro, how much of a person? How low can you get?
Yeah, and you can almost like picture the actor's face and what he's like emoting in that scene.
Yeah. Because it's like a taunt, basically, of him saying, bro, how low can you get? You took your brother's throne, and now you took his wife?
Probably, yeah.
Or you took his girl?
And, of course, you know, they're fighting, of course, and then eventually he gets away, but they use the sonic blaster to, like, blast Aquaman away.
Yep.
And then, of course, we do eventually see Mira in the Atlantean hospital.
Yep.
Which is, it looks like a bunch of jellyfish parts.
Yeah. I mean, you probably imagine it so. And it's like very, still hospital-like. So like everything's white basically, and she's trying to recover. And then that's when the council was stepping up more into their action by saying we need to just get rid of the king spy, and then we'll take over, and then and they could still. Their eyes still keep Atlantis from revealing themselves to the world, basically.
Yeah, and actually this brings up a sequence that we kind of passed over, but there's a sequence where the Council of Atlantis, they're basically like, so Aquaman's like, we should collaborate with the surface world because they're having all these climate change issues. With our technology and their ideas, maybe we can come to some sort of agreement and we can reverse all of this.
Yep, but the Council disagreed very much so.
Yeah, and this was a scene where I'm like, Aquaman could call Superman and have him come in, and then Superman could be like, well, here's the thing, Council of Atlantis, you're going down the same path that Krypton did.
Yeah.
Where I come from, basically Krypton exhausted all their natural resources, and by the time my father told them, it was too late and my homeworld blew up. Yeah. This world could suffer the same fate, only it won't blow up, it'll just become uninhabitable. Don't repeat the mistake that my world did.
Yeah.
Like, you could have Superman come in and, like, help convince the council of this.
Yep.
But I guess, they didn't want Henry Cavill coming back for some reason.
Or having another Superman come in and also probably just say, hey, it's part of this universe now.
Yeah, I mean, they could get the new guy that they just casted, but I guess they didn't want to get too ahead of themselves.
But yeah, anyways, besides the point, though. Council was voicing their own, saying that, see, Aquaman's not fit for the role, let us take over. And that's when Aquaman had his own private council with his mom.
Yeah, with Atlanta, and then Mira's father, whose name I forget for some reason.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so they were having a joint council of like, all right, we need to figure this out. So they took this orichalcum, and then of course Aquaman's like, okay, you're going to have to fill me in here on this, all right? Some of these things I don't know. And then they were like, okay, this is like some ancient thing.
Ancient Atlantean technology, and it's basically very bad.
Yeah, it was bad, so they had to like put it in storage in a vault, basically, so no one can use it. There's like 12 different, places around the world for it, and then they kind of like came to the conclusion, like, okay, he must have been around these parts, and it's only now that he was detected.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, I guess really now that I think about it, okay, you store away all this orichalcum. Why don't you just destroy it? Because in the long term, what if someone gets their hands on it and, they're going to basically destroy the planet with it?
Well, that's also kind of like you're shooting down a lot of like plot holes then of like other times when it's like, this is evil, destroy it. And then the person's like, and then they're all like, no, we're just going to store it.
I mean, yeah, I get that's kind of the thing, but it's like, all they need to do is just destroy this, and then nothing bad will happen.
Yeah. But then again, it probably too dangerous as we saw in the movie, where like, how like it kept burning, which caused environmental change.
Well, they didn't need to burn it, they just needed to find a way to like break it down, like atom by atom, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but I don't know if they had the technology to break it down atom by atom.
Well, they could figure something out. I mean, Atlantis is supposed to be more advanced than us. You're telling me they can't figure out a way to break this stuff down on an elemental level?
Why did they put it in storage?
I mean, it's like all these advanced technology of these advanced civilization. It's like nothing works. They can't come up with something.
Yep.
I don't know. It's something that kind of bothers me. And so during this meeting, he basically is like, okay, we gotta break out Orm because he knows this better than we do. He's gonna have to help us out.
He knows Black Mantis basically better than any one of them, basically.
Yeah, and so they need Orm because he's worked with Black Manta. We gotta get him out, and he'll help us.
Yeah, which the two people, both Aquaman's mom and Mira's father, were both like, bro, no, because he was the one that nearly killed y'all.
Yeah, and he killed the Fisherman King, and he almost caused a lot of other troubles. So it's like, you do this, it's going to be an act of war, and then all the kingdoms are going to start fighting each other.
And he's like, hey, then he's like, all right then. So how about this? I break him out undetected, and then it's like, okay, fine, all right. If you're gonna break him out of this prison, first of all, he's located in the desert, basically.
Yeah, he's located in the Deserter Kingdom, which is in the Sahara Desert.
Yep,
the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, which is basically for a lot of sea creatures at that point, it would almost be like a death sentence.
Yeah, and so basically he gets this suit that he allows him to cloak.
Yep.
And I will admit, I'm like, did the Atlanteans steal Predator technology? Because the cloaking is exactly how it was in Predator.
Yeah. And they also brought in the octopus that can also apparently do a lot of stealth mission outside of those,
Yeah, they talk about how the octopus is we use them for espionage, and they can do all this really cool stuff. And I'm like, okay, is this octopus a fan of Metal Gear Solid, or has it played the Metal Gear Solid games?
And of course, Aquaman's mom was like, he also plays a bunch of instruments pretty well. I was like,
they're referencing the drum scene where you see the octopus playing drums in the original.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, if this octopus is so good at espionage, maybe he got his skills from Solid Snake of the Metal Gear Solid series. I don't know, but that actually would be a good explanation. Is the octopus is a huge fan of this surface world game called Metal Gear Solid, and that's how it learned everything.
I don't know, but anyways, so he used that as well, and they were able to break him out, and it's like, wait, what the heck are you doing here? Breaking you out. You threw me in here in the first place. Well, no, I changed my mind.
Actually, yeah, that's another thing that kind of I do need to bring up is why lock him up in the desert? Wouldn't he want to be locked up in an Atlantean prison that's in the actual sea,
Well, I think just because as it kind of shows that, well, if he gets water, he's powered up, basically. So, what do? Put him out in the desert, in sunlight, whatever, in the land, where he's obviously weakened and can barely do anything.
Okay, decent explanation, but I just think that, I don't know, maybe the Atlanteans could find a way to depower one of their own, even if they're in water. They're so advanced, they could figure something out.
Throw him in the desert.
Yeah, but they don't feed him very well, and they don't give him enough water, so basically he's out there and he's gonna die. If he doesn't.
Well, yeah, but they feed like the story was saying, or as they were telling, they're giving him just enough water to live, basically.
Well, not clearly enough. He was a very twig boy, skinny dude.
Yeah, it was just enough to live, but not much to do anything else. Which is like you said, he's a twig, basically.
Yeah, and they break him out, and so these deserters they have these multi-legged creatures. I don't know how you describe them, but they're multi-legged and they're kind of vicious.
Yeah, well, the entire thing is vicious, basically.
Yeah, just I wasn't quite sure what to compare them to, but they did look pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so they used them to break them out, and they got to this. They got onto the land, or above surface level. Got to the sea. All powers up again because of the water.
Yeah, he crawls to it in the sand, and then he passes out, and then the water gets to the shore, and then he's drenched, and then I'm powered up again.
Yep, and he was able to beat them, and Aquaman was able to beat them as well. And then they're like, okay, we can't fight them off like this. Run!
Yeah, and so they eventually get into the water, and then of course they escape.
Yep, and then they get onto a ship, or Atlantean ship, where it was like, all right, time, we need to go find Black Manta. He's like, wait, so you're breaking me out just so we can buy Black Mantis?
Yeah, pretty much. And then he explains what's happening, and then he's basically like, well, I knew he was ruthless, but I didn't go this far.
Yeah, but of course, prior to that, he was also like, bro, you're doing a bad job at your job.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, yeah, they kind of, the dynamic between them was, it was kind of, it was what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, this is another thing I wanted to bring up too, but the banter that Orm and Aquaman have and the journey that they go on together, and when he's breaking Orm out of prison, this is exactly what happened between Thor and Loki and Thor the Dark World.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, people were comparing it, I knew they were, but it's like, this is exactly like Thor the Dark World.
Yeah. But yeah, they broke him out, then we get to another sequence of Black Mantis still found another place to, collect some more orichalcum.
Yeah,
Scientist dude starts to question it a little bit.
Yeah, he goes to this refinery place, which is I forget what the location of it was, but they go to this refinery place where there's more of it, and like you said, the scientist character is questioning him.
Yeah, it starts to question, and it's like, you dare try to question like that again? No, I'll stay where I'm at. All right, good.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't fully kill him. He just keeps him on board for his purpose. But, I mean, it's like, where this is going. The scientist character is going to turn his back on him, and there's going to be, the double-crossing and whatnot.
Yep. And then after that, they go to, Orm brings him to the a pirate area, basically.
Yeah, a pirate area where his contact is.
Yeah, and, of course, Aquaman's like, wait, this is a pirate area? Yeah, why? You do know I am not in friendly terms with the pirate. Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, and these pirates, they're basically sea creatures. You got hammerhead sharks that are bipedal. You've got a bunch of fish folk. You got some other stuff around the area.
Yep, so, and it's like, allow me to do the talking, and no beating people up.
Yeah, and actually with the two-legged hammerhead sharks, I was kind of like, you could have used this movie to introduce King Shark and have him be the leader of all these shark pirates, because King Shark is an Aquaman adversary in the comics. But I just, hold on a sec, folks, gotta check something quick. But yeah, so you could have had King Shark show up in this.
Yeah.
Like, I know he showed up in the Suicide Squad, but if I was the one writing this cinematic universe, you could have King Shark show up and be like the leader of this band of shark pirates.
True. Side note, though, speaking of Suicide Squad, have you seen the trailer yet for the new Suicide Squad?
The Suicide Squad killed the Justice League?
No, that's the game. I'm talking about the movie that's going to be coming out soon. The animated.
There's another animated Suicide Squad on the way? I
Isaki.
did not know this.
Or like Isekai or something like that. It's basically Japanese animated film, basically.
I did not know this at all.
Yeah, actually, a trailer came out for I want to say almost a month back.
I have not seen any footage of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but I know that
the game comes out soon.
Yeah, there is one controversy surrounding that so far, and that's Poison Ivy. Because it's basically set in the Arkham universe, and Poison Ivy dies in Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
So fans are like, "Why are you bringing her back? And why are you bringing her back so young?"
Well, I guess maybe it has to do with Brainiac too, because he is the villain also in.
Yeah, and yes, he's the villain, and we're gonna hear Kevin Conroy's final lines in that game too.
Yep. So that'll definitely be something. Plus, I'm guessing because of the whole Poison Ivy thing with Kill the Justice League, Brainiac probably has something to do with it.
It may be.
Because you know how Brainiac likes to do it, in terms of collecting data and then replicating it or something like that.
Yeah, he collects basically the best cities of any world, and he preserves these bottled up versions of the worlds he thinks he knows.
Yep.
But if he gets out into the real world, well, his sensory overload kicks in.
Yep. But anyways, in terms of the other Suicide Squad, Isekai, it's an animated. It's supposed to be basically them being teleported to another world, basically. Basically, kind of like any other, I guess, when I had to look it up too, any other Japanese film that involves a group of people, like any other Isekai film. Basically, a group of people being teleported to another world. Most likely, a lot of the time, it's a fantasy world, basically.
I have not heard of this. I'm gonna have to look this up.
Yeah, I could probably send you the trailer for it or show you once we get done with this. Real
Yeah,
quickly.
I can look this stuff up on my own, but you can send me the link because
Yeah.
I have not heard this one bit.
Yeah.
But last thing I'll mention about Suicide Squad: do not expect a director's cut of the original Suicide Squad anytime soon, because the director has just come out and said that I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it.
Also, last thing too, just because when I saw the trailer too, and I was like, you brought Harley Quinn to Japan, into Japan. You know how dangerous that's going to be? That's what I was saying. I was like, the danger of more of the Rule 34.
Oh, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Bringing Harley Quinn to Japan.
Yeah,
That'll get some hentai artists up the wall.
yeah. I'm like, oh boy, you brought a dangerous game, Harley Quinn to Japan. You're playing a dangerous game.
I'd be surprised what other Marvel and DC characters, if they brought them to Japan, what dangerous game they could get away with.
Yeah, that's for sure. But now we continue on back to Aquaman.
Yeah, we get
Where we're
sidetracked
after the
sometimes.
pirate sequence because they were fighting because of course Owen was like, all right, fine, flex your muscles.
Well, before that, his contact is basically this this blubbery fish creature.
Yeah, which I was also about to say in terms of King Shark too, or yeah, I think King Shark, right? For the
Yeah.
matchup. You could theoretically say after this whole sequence occurs that because of this blubberfish, sort of cowardness, King Shark could eventually just be like, all right, you're a freaking coward, I'll take over.
Or you could have King Shark brutally maul the guy, and he's like, "I'm in charge now."
Yeah.
Maybe if that's how they did King Shark instead of introducing him in the Suicide Squad, I would have liked that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's this basically stereotypical, basically overweight king or ruler of this area.
You could almost say like a very low budget Jabba the Hutt.
And I wouldn't say low budget because Jabba the Hutt looked great as a CGI he looked great as an animatronic. I wouldn't say CGI, but basically
You get my point though. It's just more of like, here's Jabba the Hutt, and here's Jabba the Hutt on a where it's like he's not really Jabba the Hutt. It's like can we have Jabba the Hutt? No, you got Jabba the Hutt at home. Jabba the Hutt at home. This blubberfish.
yeah, and I didn't get Jabba the Hutt out of this. I'm just like I've seen this where there's basically these kings that are just kind of lazy and stuff, and they got this laid back lifestyle, and they got all these women at their side. Only in this case, they're fish creatures.
Yeah, for me it was more of like, all right, fat, big boss, and you're in a pirate area, pirate mercenaries, like a smuggler area. Jabba.
I mean, yeah, I could now see the Jabba comparison a little bit, but yeah, this didn't really feel like low budget Jabba the Hutt. The visual effects weren't that bad in this. I mean,
Yeah.
I could tell some of them were digital, and other times they looked pretty cool. They were pretty consistent with the last one. Same thing with the color grading. But anyway, yeah, they're talking with this guy, and eventually, their negotiation or deal doesn't work out.
It breaks down, and then it's like, okay, fine, flex, and it's like, with pleasure, and then they start battling it out, and then Aquaman puts a little.
Yeah, he puts this scuba deep suit diver's helmet on. Then he gets out a tank.
Yep.
And then he's turning it, trying to interrogate him. He's like, okay, I don't know where Black Manta is.
But I do know where he's kind of going at. And he's like, where is he going? He's going to this deep. Was it Sea Devil?
It was Deep Sea Devil or something. I
Deep
forget
Sea
what the name
Devil
was.
Island or something like that. Which you kind of see puffs of smoke coming out of the volcano.
Yeah, it's basically a volcanic island, and you see all these large green clouds coming out, which is all that orichalcum they're burning.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, you got yourself a metaphor for all those factories that are pumping all the greenhouse gases into the earth. I get what you're going at here.
Yeah.
And when they come to this island, I turned to you and said, it looks like Skull Island almost.
Yep. And then funny enough, as you just kind of said that, first you couldn't. Well, even though you got the cockroach sequence where.
Oh, we gotta talk about the cockroach sequence.
Where Aquaman's like, here, it's a delicacy.
Yeah, because Aquaman's telling his brother about surface world food like cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
And,
cheeseburgers, pizzas, tacos, beer, and you know.
Yeah, but the way he was talking about the cheeseburgers, I think he was this close to referencing Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville.
Yeah.
I swear he was that close to saying cheeseburger in paradise.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course he, you know, like gets a cockroach and he, you know.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Here, try this. It's not that bad." And there were people in the theater that were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Don't do it, don't do it."
I was also kind of like that too, but at the same time I was like, oh, this is kind of like what, you know, like other countries do. You know, like they'll have bugs as delicacies.
Maybe barbecued crickets if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he
eats it. And he actually sort of likes it, and then of course Jason was, you know, he cracks over what looks like a fruit, but then it's like.
Yeah, it's like all scorched on the inside. But with the cockroach scene, it's like he bites the head off, and I'm like, well, that's not going to kill it because they can survive without their heads.
And then he eats it whole. The rest of it, it's like, oh well, there he goes.
Yeah, and I don't know how Atlantean biology works, but what I do know is that cockroaches, they carry a lot of diseases. So it's like, I don't know how their biology is going to react to that, but if a human ate a live cockroach, and trust me, cockroaches have a lot of diseases on their legs and stuff, yeah, you can expect a visit to the ER if it gets really bad.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So they're going through the island, and then they like see this giant moth fly by. And as soon as that showed up, I was like, Mosira, yeah, Mosira. And the plant like eats it, and I'm like, we got Mothra, kinda, and it gets eaten by a plant.
Yep. But it was funny when you mentioned, now you mentioned Skull, you know, like Skull Island. All of a sudden you get bigger, scarier creatures, grasshopper that grew in size, basically.
Yeah, and they were eating this basically oversized rat.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, there's one. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you guys start running because
you got a whole colony of them.
It's like, start running now because it's before they start to jump on you.
And actually, with the color grading of this jungle and stuff, I almost got Pandora vibes from this too.
Yeah, and of course, Orm was like running, kind of like Naruto. It's like the awkward Naruto.
Yeah,
and Jason's like, "What are you doing? I'm trying to run here. Well, you have to move with your arms and legs. You be like this, and also he just starts speeding up past.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, wait up for me now."
Yeah, he's got his arms back like this, and I immediately made the Naruto comparison, you know, and then I almost wanted to say, if he Naruto runs, he can move faster than the grasshoppers. And no, he will not make it to Area 51.
But no, it's like, I thought about it in my head, but then it's like, and also, Aquaman was like, you gotta move your arms like this, and it's like, and then Orm's like, you mean like this, like this?
He starts running like this,
and then he actually goes faster. It's like, wait up for me now.
Yeah, and I would have maybe liked a little scene where he's like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do this.
Yeah,
it's like cool.
Yeah, and then they start sprinting. All of a sudden, more of the, basically giant Venus flytrap monsters or whatever.
Yeah, more of them.
Yeah, it starts clawing at the bugs, and then it's like, okay, but now we're at the edge here. Let's jump. Are you crazy? We're gonna fall. Well, you got any other ideas? Run!
Then they look at a statue and they see in the writing, "A true king builds true bridges." So Aquaman like runs into it.
It's like, really? That's what you're gonna do?
You got more krill-brained ideas. And then it like falls down.
It's like, see, I can build a bridge.
And that kind of reminded me of a line in Atlantis: The Lost Empire, where like a character blows up a pillar using like one of those push-down bombs.
Oh yeah.
And then it falls down and he's like, hey look, I made a bridge. Yeah, I'm like, Atlantis: The Lost Empire reference right there. And I gotta watch that again, actually.
Hey look, I made a bridge. But it only took like 9 seconds with 10 TNTs or something like that.
I have to watch the movie again, but I just remember that line. And then, so yeah, they cross the bridge, and then, well, of course, they have to destroy it, otherwise the grasshopper monsters are gonna get them.
Yeah, so that they push it, and it looked like the one grasshopper giant.
Yeah, almost gets them.
And it's like, oh.
And then it punches him, and then you see them all fall down and stuff. And actually, that little sequence where the statue and all the grasshoppers are falling down, I was kind of reminded of a small moment in The Mummy Returns when the pygmy mummies are running to get the characters, and then Rick O'Connell, he throws a stick of dynamite, and it blows up this tree trunk, falls in half, and they all go falling down.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that almost.
Yeah, and it's like, well, my metaphor, or that metaphor, just saves both our ass.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, really?
Yeah, and as they continue their way through the island, they come across like a swamp area, or basically, it's kind of swampy with like a very dark Force look to it.
Yeah, but then they eventually found like the entrance to what the volcanic, like that.
Yeah,
This factory basically.
Yeah, they find the entrance, and as soon as they get in there, Aquaman's doing this noise. It's like cuckoo, cuckoo, or whatever it was.
Yeah, but prior to that though, the scientist dude made a couple visits back to Black Mantis. First time was like, hey, it's like I just wanted to report that we're moving well with our process, because Black Mantis was talking to the,
Yeah, he was talking to the bad guy that's living inside the Black Trident.
Yeah.
And then, the scientist reports the progress, and he doesn't really say anything. He just looks at him like this.
He's just like,
yeah, and then closes the door.
It's like, do you mind?
Yeah, and it's like, hey, man, I mean, a thank you would have been nice.
Yeah. And the second time I was like, okay, we got, hey, Mantis, I got this other thing now. We gotta stop this. In which case, the room is empty. He sees the Black Trident broken. He connects the dot, and then he sees the visions of the potential future. In which case, he was frightened by it, but not controlled. And then Mantis was right behind him. And in this case, he had the idea of, he was like, okay, you really want to know what my idea is? Well, I'm going to tell it to you since you like to dig deep into my life.
Yeah, and then he gets out his knife, his favorite knife that was passed down to him from his dad, and he's like, okay, now my blade hasn't really tasted blood in quite some time, but I think it wants to. He doesn't actually say that.
No, this is more of like, he tells him his true goal, and he takes out the blade saying, usually I don't take this blade out unless it, unless it spills blood. And it's like, uh-oh, and it's like, make sure next time I don't take it out.
Yeah.
And then he, just grazes him, basically, he still got the blood as the blade, in his wording, intended. But it's kind of like a threatening tone of, the next time I use this blade on you, it will be the last time.
Oh, definitely. And the actor playing Black Manta, he just pulls off that intimidation and threat factor so well,
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I do like where it's going with this. He was a good choice for Black Manta, I won't lie.
Yeah.
But anyway, they find the entrance to the volcano, and then Aquaman's making that noise, cuckoo, cuckoo, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like a little echoing voice, in which case, as they're like beating, like one punching them and knocking them out, it's just like, okay, the entire volcano area is like an echo chamber at this point. So why isn't anybody like looking around like...
Yeah, like and the way they hit these guys, it sounds really loud,
Yeah.
And it's like, did no one else in the room hear that?
Or like in the area, it's like, like, well, what was that noise?
Yeah, it's like, there's a comparison I can make here actually, but in Wolfenstein The New Order, there's sections in the game where you're allowed to either go full gun blazing or you can do stealth mode.
Oh yeah, the whole stereotypical stealth is an option.
Yeah, but in Wolfenstein The New Order, when you're doing stealth against the Nazis, basically you're given a silencer, and William J. Blazkowicz does things a lot more quieter without making a noise.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't hide the bodies in the game, but you get the idea. They could have done this more silently.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't need to make all this noise.
Yeah.
And the fact that no one else in the room heard it, are they really that stupid?
Yeah, and then they eventually got to the control room where it's just like, all right, you got it? Yeah.
Yeah, they take him out, and then of course the scientist character, he like confronts them with a weapon,
and he's like,
stand where you are, I'm gonna blast you away. But then he like closes the door. He's like, oh, it's just an act. It's just an act. I didn't want them causing any suspicion.
Yeah, and of course, both of them were initially like, all right, you take him out, and then we can have the fight later. No, I want to join you guys. Please don't kill me. I don't trust you. But then Orm's like, no, we'll let him come. Wait, what? We'll let him come with us.
Yeah, it's not like he's done anything wrong to us. But if he does do anything wrong to us, then maybe we can kick him out. Well, actually, he doesn't say that, but you get the idea.
No, he's like, no, we'll let him come with us. And he's like, fine. You're gonna tell us everything you know. He's like, yes, he is. Okay, this is what he's doing. And then boosh.
Yeah, and then because we can't have too much exposition, we got to get to the next action sequence.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I know, it was like funny enough, it's like, I thought like Stingray would have like accused him of something, but I guess she didn't, but instead goes after Orm and Aquaman.
Yeah, like if she confronted the scientist and went traitor, and then like went after him.
But instead they just got him as if he was like injured in the explosion. Like, okay.
Yeah, but he was so close to it, he could have died.
Yeah, I know. But they got him as if like, oh crap, we gotta get him out of here. It's like, wait, you're not taking him out as like a prisoner? No? Oh, okay. Well, lucky him then.
Yeah, and then of course we get a battle with Stingray and these basically mechanical machines.
Yep.
That have like a bunch of legs.
Yep. Which case they beat Stingray, and then Mantis comes out, and then Orm's like, I can fight him. It's like Aquaman's like, oh, he's a lot tougher than before. Oh, come on, how tough can he? Uh-oh.
Yeah, and he's got a more powerful suit too.
Yep.
And then of course they have their battle, and then I think this is kind of one of the sections I sort of forget a bit.
Yeah. Well, this was the one where it was like, I think Mantis was nearly having the victory, but then of course Atlantis, or at least the battalion of them, came by because this octopus creature reported back the location, and of course Mira's father was like, alright, destroy the island. And they fire rockets at the island, crumbling the island.
Yeah.
And of course that's when Manta was like, oh crap, time to run.
Yeah. And so basically, yeah, they go rescue them, but then like eventually Black Manta, he goes to where Aquaman's family is in Maine, in the lighthouse.
Yeah, but prior to that though, because they got both Orm and Aquaman out of that wreckage of the island.
Oh yeah, this sequence. This is where Orm basically reveals,
because he also connected the Trident, because during that fight because he was going to try to connect it to use it against Mantis.
Yeah, and when he connects the Trident, he does this like over the top reaction where he's like, ah.
Yeah, because he sees what's happening. Like every other character, when they connected connected the two, sees what the Black Trident is trying to show, and then Mantis shoots him with the beam, whatever. But he turns out a lot better condition than what Mira had.
Oh yeah, it's like Mira's the one that gets injured, but he
badly. Like she gets injured badly, and all he gets was like a almost like first degree burn almost.
Yeah, because Mira's was 3rd degree, and then Orm only gets 1st degree or something.
Yeah.
But it's like those beams must be so strong. They should give everybody 3rd degree.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but besides the point. Anyways, so that's when Orm was like, all right. It's like I don't just know it. It felt like I experienced this.
Yeah, and so basically he recounts during the time of King Atlan, who was the first king of Atlantis,
Yep.
that he had a brother,
Yep.
and his brother, well, he started a 7th kingdom, and they were using the Orichalcum as an energy source.
Yeah, but because of back then, because they also realized back then of the Orichalcum, at least the first ruler of Atlanta was like, bro, no, this is bad. This is bad news. You need to get rid of this crap.
Yeah, you're polluting the earth. You're basically going to cause a global climate crisis, and it's going to wipe out everything on this planet. But then the brother's like, you fool, this is my kingdom. I'll rule it my way.
You're only here to take over more of what, try to, like dethrone him basically and expand Atlantis or whatever. So then he creates the Black Trident and then spread corruption basically, creating a lot of the undead sea creatures basically.
Yeah, and then he becomes corrupted by the energy, and basically he turns into a character that looks like he came out of Mordor almost.
Yeah, or like World of Warcraft almost like not like Lich King basically, but it's kind of like a unnecromance like king basically.
Yeah, a little necromancy, but I was getting some Lord of the Rings vibes from this sequence.
Yeah, so then they have like this undead sea creature army against Atlantis, in which case the first king of Atlantis has actually looked like he easily won that battle. Because he split the Trident in two, and then basically put them on ice, basically.
Yeah, he basically did a spell with his own blood. You see the knife on the hand, and then he like gets it on the platform.
Yep.
And then the bad guy's like, no!
Yeah, because then at that point, the entire kingdom was frozen, basically. And then it's like, alright, it's basically the equivalent of, we bury this for good for all eternity. The idea of it is it will never be on the record book, basically.
Yeah, we're wiping this.
Because if someone knew about this, they could easily, if they had bad intentions, to go find it.
Well, eventually someone did find it, even if it was erased from the records.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. But the idea was like, this is supposed to be buried off the records.
Yeah.
So that way no one can find it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, somebody found it.
And then eventually they kind of figure out that in order to free the bad guy, basically someone within Atlan's bloodline has to free the king.
Yeah, because it was like, wait, it was blood magic, so that means there has to be some other way. And it's like, well, but for this blood magic, it has to be through the bloodline, which is, and they were like, well, it's either the king of Atlantis or the former king, which would have, or at least the mom, or yeah, it would have been either the mom, Aquaman, or Orm, because Orm thought we're the last three, and
But then Aquaman's like, well, technically we're not the end of the bloodline, but I know who is.
yeah, he's like, well, he knew, it's like, we're not the end of the bloodline. He's like, what? And it's like, cut to the baby. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, and then so basically Black Manta goes to where his father, who is Jango Fett, by the way, same actor and stuff. And so he goes there, and so basically he's like, I'm going to leave you alive so that he can see what's going to happen to you, but I'm taking the kid with me.
Yeah, take the kid, leave him alive, but burn the house, basically. And it's like, where's the kid? And it's like, I'm sorry, he took the kid. And it's like, no.
Yeah, and when he does his, like, no, when his father's, like, injured and stuff, there's kind of this slow-mo sequence. It slows down a bit, and I'm like, this is so cheese. Because there were a few cheesy things in this movie, but not enough to collapse it as a whole. And I was like, at this moment, oh, they're going to kill the dad character? Like, he's going to die? Nope, he lives.
Just in critical condition.
Yeah, it's like death is inconsequential in this.
For most of the main characters, or at least the good characters.
Yeah, and it's like, I get maybe why you don't want to kill these characters, but it's like, take a risk or two sometimes, movie.
Or at least produce it, because a lot of them don't like the idea of potentially killing off one of the good guy characters.
Well, I mean, if they can do it in Avengers Infinity War, and yes, I know they come back in Endgame, but it's like, sometimes it gotta have some impact.
Yeah.
A little emotional impact. They could have done it here, but they just didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in critical condition, and so basically they're like, this is personal now. Let's go finish this.
Where it's like this is personal. It's like, don't try to make it personal. But it's like, no, this is now gone personal. No, this now has gone personal.
Yeah, pretty much. And so they go to either Arctic Circle or Antarctica. But
I believe it's like Antarctica still, but either way, yeah. But they have the battalion, and in this case, it kind of got into my head of more of like going back to the Justice League, the Battle of Atlantis, but now in Antarctica, basically.
Yeah, it was kind of like that episode in Justice League where the final battle takes place within an Arctic environment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did James Wan and everybody else watch that Justice League episode and was like, okay, let's do that, but we'll do more kind of fantastical stuff in it that relates to Aquaman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still relates to Aquaman even in that sequence, but instead of having a brother versus brother fight, this is more of like a brother and like two brothers and the battalion of Atlantis versus Dark Atlantis.
Yeah, so they go over there, and of course the Brine King and his armies are there too. Which, by the way, the Brine King was voiced by Gimli.
Yeah. All right.
Did you know it was Gimli?
Oh, that big giant,
The
like,
Crab King.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Gimli from Lord of the Rings voicing him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, yeah, they go there, and of course they engage in the battle with all the bad guys.
Yep. And in this case, and it's like we'll hold them off. You guys go on ahead, and then it's like became that sequence of like, like as the other forces were trying to get back up to the like the palace basically, where the baby was supposed to be at basically.
Yeah.
And they were like approaching the palace walls basically, getting closer and closer and closer and closer. The scientist dude and Mantis,
Black Manta, they come to where the bad guy is encased in ice.
Yep, and then he, scientist hands the bag, which is supposedly where the baby was in, but it's like too quiet. And then he opens up, it's like, yeah, of course, the bomb.
Yeah, and then he throws the bomb, and then it makes the blast.
Yep.
And then, of course, the scientist character saves the baby, and then he gets it to Mira.
Or attempts to, but then Black Manta is like, you chose the wrong day to grow a spine.
Yeah, and he like shoots him in the spine with an electrical wire.
Yep, and then of course he gets the baby, puts it on the thing. Baby uses its ability.
It was the mind control ability to get all these like.
Not mind control, but kind of like telepathy.
Not mind control, telepathy. Why did I get the two mixed up?
Yeah, but anyway, the telepathy thing, which was used in the beginning of the film, funny enough, but instead of using the messages to contact like the pet fish from from Aquaman's home, but this time to contact his Aquaman, his dad, and Aquaman's like, oh, and
now we know where the kid is, and then. At some point or another, like they used the telepathic ability to tell all the whales and all the animals in the area, get the bad guys main ship.
Oh yeah, well the idea. Prior to this whole sequence, Aquaman used the thing. All the whales, the giant whales, because they also used the same loud frequency.
Yeah, and there were a few orcas mixed in there too.
Yep, but either way, it was enough loud energy to kind of like disable and destroy the ship basically from the inside. So that way, the sonic disruptor was basically destroyed, and everyone just kind of like got sunk with the ship, basically, and died.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, again, after that, as Black Manta was about to, you could say, kill the baby, because he was going to stab it completely.
Yeah, and then Aquaman, like, throws in, and then he's like, you will not hurt my son!
Yep.
And then Black Manta's like, well, your blood will do just fine.
Yep. And then they start having a battle sequence, and then Mira saves the child, and she starts to run away.
Yeah, and then Black Manta, he like throws the black trident at her, and you think, oh, they're gonna kill her off.
But then it stops as she was dodging it, and it's like, wait. Either it stopped in time, it's either like a really, really slow motion sequence where it will just barely grazed her, basically, or and it's like it got to the moment where Orm actually grabs the thing, or he actually grabs it and holds on to it. He's like, go,
get out of here, run! But actually, there's another sequence prior where Orm and Mira's father, they're fighting the undead armies, I think, or what were they fighting again?
Well, they were climbing up the wall, and also that same tentacle monsters that we saw in the beginning of the film. But this time he kind of came out, and he grabbed the father, and he looked at Orm, asking him to save him,
But of course, Orm's like, long live the king. You think he's gonna let him die.
Well, because they also had bad relationship, because the father also didn't hand him the gun. He handed him an axe, which is like a battle axe, whatever, and it was like, well, he hates you.
Yeah, and as soon as that moment came on, I was like, I almost channeled Scar, and I was like, long live the king.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden he comes back around, chops up the, one of the tentacles, and of course the creature's like, crap, and as he was kind of like falling backwards, and it's just like,
yeah,
okay, fine, here you go.
Yeah, I did like that little moment where they don't say a word, they just gain each other's respect, kind of, and he's like, oh, the gun, take it.
Yeah, he's like,
you earned it.
Yep, you earned the gun. And then, of course, now back to the trident scene.
Yeah, so
he grabs it, and then now the trident spear, the evil king was like, all right, you take the throne because you have a grudge against, basically.
Oh,
yeah, well, it's basically he realized that, hey, we're the same, basically, because it's like, you have a grudge against your brother, like how I did against my brother.
Although the evil king did briefly possess Black Manta. There was a small moment where that happened.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but either way, he did possess Orm, because it's like, hey, wait a minute, we're very similar. You hate your brother like I hate my brother. And then it's like,
yeah, or maybe you could have had a small moment where, like, Orm, he's got all this dark power, and then he, like, basically, he overpowers the evil king in his mind, and then he goes, the trident is mine. And then the music gets, like, really epic, and there's this, like, loud, booming choir in the background, and he's got this really evil grin, and then he, like, goes power drunk crazy, but then the evil king, like, kind of fights him back. They're doing this mind control fight or whatever, and then the evil king like breaks his grip, and it's so painful that Orm's like, ah!
Don't know, but I think this is more of like, all right, we have a similar thing. I'll take over, But of course, prior to that, though, because Black Manta was still like mad at Aquaman, but he is now powered down, and it's just like, nope, not now.
And then,
Punch.
and then, of course, they have their power struggle, Aquaman and Norm. And then Aquaman's like, brother, I know you're in there. You can fight this.
And of course, Orm overpowers Aquaman a little bit, gets him on that little pedestal, blood spills, and because of that, the
evil king is free.
Is getting free, and that's when they have the other power struggle of like, give me the trident. And it's like, no, and you see the spear kind of circling around as the ice kind of like, breaks apart, basically freeing the king.
Yeah, then he like uses his powers to snatch the black trident away, and then Orm gets the golden trident. He throws it to Aquaman and says, "Here, use it." Then he like throws it in, and it perfectly aligns as it hits the black trident.
Well, yeah, because first he threw the black trident trying to kill the king with it, but then the king,
that's what it was.
He grabs it like, oh yeah, no, it ain't gonna work. And then that's when Orm's like, use this now, and it's like, all right. Then he throws it, and like you said, it perfectly in line, so where it's like it starts to break the black trident like completely.
Yeah, that's something that would really impress a mathematician. I won't lie.
Yeah, and then it not only breaks the trident completely, but also the king. It kills the king basically, and then because of that, it's kind of like the whole like, well, now the king is dead and the trident blows up, so now
the entire kingdom collapses all around us,
and all the dark magic is kind of like vanishes basically. It starts to like go away basically.
Yeah, and then Black Manta like falls through a hole, and then he's like clinging on to the ledge.
Aquaman's like, come on, let me help you, and it's like,
and then Black Manta's like, never, and he just kind of falls down.
Yep, and he falls down to his death basically.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they were like, we got nothing else for this guy. Let's just have him dead.
Yep, and then it's like, all right, time to get out, and they got out, and then it's like, well, with everything kind of, it's like, well, it's like, first of all, your debt's paid off. Not everyone's gonna see it though, but thankfully, the entire place broke down to where it's kind of hard to find a body.
Yeah, and then they're basically like, you may have to lay low for a little while.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And he's like, but don't go too far, because I may need you for advice.
And he's like, that's not too bad either.
Yeah.
And eventually he calls him brother and stuff, and it's like, redemption arc maybe?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yep. And he said, just do what you do, because no matter what, Atlantis will follow you. As long as you wield it with an iron. As long as your will and determination is strong, Atlantis will follow.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Orm swims away, and then, the day is saved. And then
it cuts to the end sequence where Atlantis actually reveals itself to the world, basically.
Yeah,
because you see a lot of like the news outlets were like, breaking news, Atlantis is revealing itself.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the end sequence of Black Panther where Wakanda reveals themselves to the world. But not the exact same way, but it's kind of like that.
Yeah, where Atlantis reveals itself, the United Nations are kind of like all together, and then Aquaman kind of like has a speech basically, and then he makes a really compelling speech, and of course he kind of has this rock and roll vibe at the end of the speech.
Yeah, they have Steppenwolf's "Born to Be Wild" playing, which was kind of the theme of this movie, but the theme song of this movie. But anyway, yeah, like he has kind of his speech, and he has to include a little rock and roll bro moment, which most of the politicians would have been like, "That's really unprofessional."
Yeah, it's like it's like not civilized or improper for a king, but all right.
Animated Aquaman would never do that.
Yeah, but anyways, though, besides the point though, but then we have like a final sequence of Orm hiding out, having a cheeseburger, okay with it, but he's like, it needs something else. Oh yeah, this cockroach.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh crap, you're gonna have the health inspector called or something. Yeah, I mean, and when he sits down in the cafe eating all that food, I was like, this kind of reminds me of the ending of The Dark Knight Rises, where Alfred is sitting in that cafe in Europe, and then he sees Bruce and Selina having gone through all of what they dealt with Bane. They're now living a life in peace.
Yep.
And it's like, they could have maybe gone somewhere with that, but no, he's just sitting down, eating food, and just enjoying himself.
Yep, having a cheeseburger, like JC was like, or like Aquaman was like, you gotta have this cheeseburger, you gotta have pizza, you gotta have all these food. And he's like, what the out.
because he's obviously never had surface world food, so it's
Yeah.
all foreign to him. But he likes it.
Yep.
And I was kind of hoping, there'd be something else towards the end, but no, just ends.
And it just kind of leaves it to where you still question: is it going to be the former from the old universe, or it's going to be part of the new universe? Who knows?
Maybe they'll clarify it once the future stuff comes out.
Yeah,
but
we'll see.
yeah.
But it leaves it open ended, basically.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, this was fine for what it was. I mean,
Yeah.
it was good where it needed to be, and it
Yeah.
gave us a decent adventure to follow. I'd probably watch it again just for maybe a little bit of entertainment value that's there.
Yep.
But I would say, this is, it is what it is. It's not trying to be anything groundbreaking.
Yep, it is what it is. And I think before we wrap this whole thing up, I know we mentioned in the previous video that we would also get a quick review of Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
And
But, however, we've had kind of a change of circumstances regarding that. I have not seen it, but you have.
I have, but I know you prefer to have like a, kind of like this where we talk about it together, basically. So we could probably put this on hold until I know you plan on seeing the R-rated version of
Yeah,
Part
there's
1.
there's an R-rated extended cut that we'll release on Netflix. Maybe we could do a video of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I did see it. I did see the PG-13, the version that just came out for Netflix. I thought it was decent, all right, but again,
I've heard some negative word because it's Zack Snyder, and because it's a Zack Snyder movie, it's releasing so close to the final DC movie because he did start this universe. I almost, wanted to see it, but after hearing all this word of mouth, I'm like, might want to hold off until the extended cut comes out. And I know Part 2 is going to get an extended cut too.
yeah. And for me, it was decent, but I can understand a lot of the negativity, like critique towards this film. And I'll just say this kind of like right off the bat, I may repeat this again in the time of the Rebel Moon Part 1 review, but it kind of felt Dune Part 1, where it's just mainly expeditions and a lot of setting up, even though they kind of they did an okay job.
Basically, it's a lot of exposition and setup
for
what's to come.
Part 2, basically. That's what Part 1 is, basically, is the whole thing. It's just a lot of expedition, a lot of setting up for Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Dune Part 1 was. It's a lot of expeditions, a lot of setting up for Part 2, which is coming up in, was it March?
Yeah, I don't know when the extended cut of the first one's going to come out. I'd have to double check that.
Well, that's for Part 1 of the Rebel Moon for the rated R version. But in terms of Dune Part 2, it's supposed to come out in March.
Oh, you're talking Dune Part 2. Yeah, that
Yeah.
comes out in March.
Yeah. And I believe Rebel Moon Part 2 comes out in March, April?
Somewhere
around
around
that same
time,
timeline?
yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, Rebel Moon, it's just basically kind of has that very similar architect, basically, of a lot to Dune Part 1.
Yeah.
It's just expeditions setting up for Part 2.
Yeah, and I think when I came up with the idea of we should briefly talk about Rebel Moon before Aquaman, it's because, Zack Snyder, he started the DC Cinematic Universe, the first one, but his vision, didn't play all the way out to the end.
No, and there are also some things about even in Rebel Moon that people didn't like as well. And some of the thing is about what's next that Zack Snyder did even in his other films too, like in his DC universe.
Yeah,
which is a lot of unnecessary
slow motion.
Yep, slow motions.
Yeah, people are like, this drags the whole thing out. It makes it too long. It makes it sluggish. And I get where they're coming from. I have seen the 4-hour cut of Justice League. I completely get it.
Yeah.
But it's part of his style, and it's
Yeah.
it may not be the best, but it is what it is. There's not much we can do to change it.
Yeah, there are some scenes where he does use the slow motion where it is solid, where it's a good slow motion sequence. But there are other scenes where it's just why do you need it there? That's not necessary.
I'd have to see the movie for myself, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if we'll do a Rebel Moon video when the extended cut comes out. The reason why is because it's Netflix only. It had a very limited theatrical run.
Yeah.
And 4 cinemas, I believe, or it could have been a little more than that, but 4 from what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be kind of challenging because we'd have to sort of arrange a time to figure that out.
That's for sure, yep.
Yeah, but with Zack Snyder, his DC vision obviously didn't make it to the end because his Flashpoint, he was going to adapt Flashpoint. From what I've heard, it was going to be a little more closer than what the actual Flashpoint movie we got.
Yeah, but who knows how that would have gone because maybe he would have probably, I don't know if he had the idea of fixing the DC universe with Flashpoint or with his idea of Flashpoint, but...
Well, his idea was Reverse Flash was the one that was behind basically that 5-film saga that Zack Snyder had planned out. So Reverse Flash was the one behind all of it, and he was orchestrating different events throughout the DC cinematic universe.
Oh,
and
so he would have been like the big bad of...
He would have been the big bad of this entire Zack Snyder Snyderverse.
Yeah.
And so basically, it was going to be like they were going to have a sort of scenario where you got all the old cast members coming back for one last big event, and then one Flash reset the timeline. Yeah. That was going to be all the new people that were coming in, new actors and stuff. That was the original plan. Yeah. But obviously that never got made, and what we got was even worse.
Yeah.
You can refer to our Flash video for that, where I was in complete shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this whole DC cinematic universe that we've gotten, it's just interesting how I have lived to see the end of this current universe.
Yep, and now you're getting a new universe. And we have still yet to see how, also speaking of the universe, how the MCU universe comes to a close, basically.
They're saying that Secret Wars could be the one that closes it off, and then a reboot will follow from that. Yeah. What I want to know, though, is if Kang is going to get recast, and who's going to play him. Because as you all know, Jonathan Majors got fired due to his criminal charges. So now it's like, do they drop Kang? Do they recast? I think they should recast because they got to finish up Kang's storyline at least.
Well, especially when you after the Ant-Man,
Yeah, that post-credit in Ant-Man, you just can't. That's such a good setup. Don't leave it alone.
Yeah, or just don't leave it alone, or don't just let it disappear like, what the heck? What happened to all the other Kangs? And it's like, well...
I'll tell you what happened to the other Kangs. Basically, Dr. Doom comes in and he's like, this council has been disbanded. On whose authority? Mine.
Yeah.
Then he, blasts away all the Kangs. Yeah. Or, he gets a gauntlet, Infinity Gauntlet, and snaps them all away.
Yeah.
Or what I would like is if he goes after Kang Prime, which is where all the Kangs originate from. Yeah. You take out Kang Prime, all the Kangs are done.
Yeah.
Which they could do, but I don't know. But I don't know if that would be accurate to Kang in the comics.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so we'll kind of see how that plays out, and we'll get one MCU movie this year, though. That's Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
And then any future stuff will come immediately after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this DC cinematic universe, it started with Zack Snyder, but then he got the boot when they didn't like what he was planning, and it's had different visions and changes throughout the years. I know The Rock wanted to jumpstart something new with Black Adam, but that Black Adam Superman movie is never going to happen.
Yeah.
And pretty much almost all of the cast are kind of done at this point. They're all moving on.
Yeah.
And it's we'll get some new people, we'll get new faces. And Jason Momoa, they're saying he got him play Lobo or continue being Aquaman, but they're not entirely sure though. There's a lot of planning that James Gunn's going to have to figure out.
Yeah. But I think that's about it, though.
But yeah, he did confirm that Blue Beetle is still going to be in this universe.
Yep.
Blue Beetle's going to be in this universe no matter what.
Yeah.
They're thinking, well, we could have him going, and maybe that's part of the new universe, but we're not so clear on that.
Yeah.
If they make a Blue Beetle sequel, though, I don't know if they should, because it bombed at the box office. But if they made some kind of follow-up to Blue Beetle, try to make it a little more interesting than the first one was.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah.
And in terms of other heroes that DC is going to introduce, they're going to do a bunch of new guys that we've never seen before. They'll have familiar faces,
Yep.
but it's going to be a bunch of new people that are coming on board.
Yep.
There is a Green Lantern reboot on the horizon with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart.
Yep.
Not as a movie, but as a TV series, although I would have preferred it as a movie, but...
Digress.
We can't change what happens, I guess, unless something happens. But before we wrap all this up, I need to check something, and then I will close this off with some rankings or something like that. Okay, so to wrap up the entire thing, if we were to rank the entire DC cinematic universe, the first one at least, nothing related to the reboots, how would we do it?
Well, I would say Aquaman 2 will probably be in the upper rankings. But in terms of the other ones, would it be higher than the Batman v Superman? What about Man of Steel? The original Aquaman? What about the 2 Wonder Woman movies?
Okay, so if I were to like place Aquaman 2 in the rankings of the other DC films, I would probably place this in the good range.
It will be in the good range, definitely for sure.
Like I would say this movie's on the same level of quality as the first Aquaman.
All right.
And I would say, despite maybe some inconsistencies I see between the two films, this is still James Wan's movie. Mm-hmm. It still feels like it came from him and the ideas he has for Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Aquaman 2 it's not as bad as I would say most people are making this out to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 3 out of 5 star movie for me at most.
Yeah.
And I would probably put the first Wonder Woman above both Aquaman movies.
All right.
The first one, right?
Yeah, first Wonder Woman I'd place above both because that one I feel like was the movie that basically helped get the cinematic universe out of the rut that it was in, and tried to basically say, okay, we're sorry about those attempts, we're going to make something good, which they did.
Yep.
I would probably put this above Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Justice League?
Which one?
Oh, you're talking between the original, or let's just go with both. Both the original cut and the Zack Snyder cut.
Okay. Zack Snyder cut is better than the original cut. The original cut is not good because of all the stuff that went down behind the scenes and the fact that it feels like an inferior take on the Avengers. Mm-hmm. I would say both Aquamans are above the Justice League movies, if only because while the Snyder cut's better than the theatrical cut, both versions have problems.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
All right.
And I'd have to write full-fledged reviews on why.
And I probably don't need to ask you about the Flashpoint.
No, because that's one of the worst ones in the franchise. Yep. That one hurt really, really bad.
Yep.
So bad, in fact, that I just don't understand how the Flash had so many decades of development, and this is what we ended up with.
And then we also have Wonder Woman 1984.
That one's kind of in the mid-tier range for me. I didn't hate it as much as other people did.
Yep.
It's kind of a middle ground movie for me. There's things to like in it. Yep. First Suicide Squad, I would place both Aquamans above the first Suicide Squad.
And the second one?
The second one, there's stuff I liked about it, although I'd probably want to place the Aquaman movies above it.
Birds of Prey.
That's one of the worst ones. Actually, that is the worst one in the franchise. Because Birds of Prey was insufferable at most. I just don't know how anybody liked Birds of Prey. I'm being honest. I don't know how anybody liked it.
And then I guess if you want to also include the TV series as well.
Peacemaker?
Yep, Peacemaker.
I have not seen Peacemaker, but I'm not really a John Cena guy, so you don't ever expect me to see that.
So, non-applicable.
Yeah. Let me think. There's the Shazam films.
Oh, yep, the 2 Shazams, yep.
Yeah. Both Aquamans would probably go above the second Shazam, because I don't remember liking the second Shazam a lot.
What about the first one, then?
The first Shazam is better than the second Shazam. I think maybe I could put Shazam in the good category the more I kind of watch it a bit.
And then Black Adam.
Black Adam's on the lower end, because I remember being bored out of my mind watching Black Adam.
All right. Is there anybody else?
Blue Beetle.
Oh, wouldn't that be part of the new one?
It's still kind of part of the old universe. They class it in there, but it's kind of debating right now. Is it going to be a part of the new universe? Although it's still part of this one.
Well, let's just say it's part of this old universe. Where would you rank the Blue Beetle then?
It's better than the weaker entries in this franchise. I would put it in the middle ground because although there's stuff in there that's, fine for what it is, it was just a very by-the-numbers movie.
Yep.
Yeah, so really it's like, I would just place both Aquaman movies above the weaker installments, but they're nowhere near as awesome as the first Wonder Woman was.
So basically, it sounds like, at least in your eyes, Wonder Woman is probably like number 1, basically, out of the first Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
the entire DC
the original DC cinematic universe.
Yeah,
the first Wonder Woman is probably the best one.
Yeah, if only because with that movie, they knew that we have to make this one good. We have to convince people that this brand is not as bad as everyone is saying it is.
Yeah.
We got to let people know that we're moving away from Zack Snyder's vision. We're going to give you an entertaining movie that feels like a genuine superhero adventure, which it is.
Yeah. And then it almost sounds like both Aquamans will be behind.
Yeah, sounds like that. I may have to go through this entire franchise again when Aquaman 2 gets on Max, not HBO Max, but Max, and sort of kind of make a personal ranking, because you will expect me making reviews of that entire franchise soon on this channel. I've got some That Minnesotan Guy retrospectives planned for this, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this franchise, it had its moments, it's had its run, it tried its best to compete with Marvel, but in the end, it's just kind of, it exists.
It existed, yeah, and who knows in terms of how people will view it, basically.
Yeah, I know there's different opinions on these movies, and you're allowed to have that. It's just, I feel like, and I've said this before in other videos, that the DC Cinematic Universe, it had so much potential, it had so much promise, so many opportunities to be great.
But it flopped.
And they completely squandered all of it because DC has struggled always
in live action
with their live action material.
Animated wise, they've done a lot more better job. Especially they've done better in the animated department than Marvel has. Marvel has done some decent jobs with their animated films and stuff like that.
The animated stuff with Marvel, I can defend some of it better than most.
Yeah, but I would probably say that the animated DC has done a lot more favoritism to its advantage over Marvel's anime. I think probably a good amount of people will remember the original Justice League a lot better. The Batman animated series.
Superman the animated series, Batman Beyond.
Beyond, and also the original Teen Titans.
Oh, definitely.
A lot of people remember those a lot better than, the Marvel animated.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, with the potential of DC, it's I want them to make movies that are like the animated shows we grew up with, or some of those animated movies.
Yeah.
They have potential, they just don't know how to use it properly.
Yeah.
I think it's because maybe they have trouble translating their properties to the big screen.
Yeah.
But, James Gunn has said he's using Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice as the blueprint for his reboot. Although that's good to hear, I just don't know if James Gunn's the right person for the job.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because he has his own style. He has his own, way of doing things. And I wouldn't say that lines up with what Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and all these other guys did.
Yep.
So it's we'll kind of see how the reboot plays out. But I guess the very last thing I'll say, now that this entire cinematic universe has come to a close, all those movies that were planned, because I know there was a lot of stuff planned, it's never going to see the light of day.
No.
There was a Booster Gold film that they were planning, and if anyone knows who Booster Gold is, there's one Justice League Unlimited episode that was all about him, and then he made a lot of appearances in Batman: The Brave and the Bold.
Yep.
Which, by the way, the depictions of Aquaman and the Brave and the Bold were very cheesy. Because I recently binged that entire series, and Aquaman's very cheesy in that show.
Yeah.
But Booster Gold. Plastic Man is another one that will never get made.
Oh yeah, and that one got into the Dark series and the Injustice, I believe, as well.
Plastic Man was in Injustice?
I believe in the animated, at least, not the video game.
Oh, you're talking the animated. Yeah, he was in the animated. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, because the animated followed a little bit from the comic, because he was also in the comic books.
Yeah, which I need to read those actually.
Yeah.
But you're never gonna see that. You're never gonna see a Zatanna movie because they were planning that too.
Yeah.
You're never going to see anything with John Constantine, because I think they were talking about that. You're never going to see any John Constantine movie that's not Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, well, you could maybe in the new cinematic, but not what was in store for this one.
They could. They might introduce the Justice League Dark in the reboot, because I know Swamp Thing has a movie in the reboot that's coming out.
Yeah, Justice League Dark, definitely, yeah, because if you're going to... I mean, that will be one way to compete with the MCU now, is just having the dark timeline kind of like come into play a little bit.
Yeah, they could do a new 52 angle if they wanted to, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to go that route.
Yeah.
Because you probably won't see Darkseid for the foreseeable future in this reboot.
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows?
And then I know there was a Black Canary movie planned
Yeah.
ever since her appearance in Birds of Prey. It looks like that's pretty much shelved at this point.
Yeah.
At one point, they were going to make a Nightwing movie.
Yeah.
You're never going to see that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I also know at one point they wanted Michael Bay to make a Lobo movie. And Michael Bay, he was interested, but I think they never came to a good negotiation, and well, he's not doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would want Michael Bay near these properties anyway, because we all know how Michael Bay makes a movie, and it would get instantly hated.
Yep.
And it's like, the older you get, the more you realize, yeah, Mr. Bay is not that good of a director.
Yeah, and a lot of explosion just happens a lot.
Yeah, and he'll have his overly stylish color grading and angle to it.
Yep.
I do know there was going to be a DC movie where it was Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy teaming up. You're never going to see that.
Yeah.
And then this one kind of disappoints me. When the DC Cinematic Universe was first announced, they were going to do a Green Lantern reboot called Green Lantern Corps, and then it never got made. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? I needed that after the Ryan Reynolds disaster.
Yep.
But yeah, as you can tell, there's like so much potential they had. They just don't know how to use it. And there's so many movies that will now fade away and get lost. Which, by the way, the Batgirl movie that was going to be a part of this universe,
Yeah.
you're never going to see that. It's been canceled,
Yeah.
canned forever. And it's like, yeah. And then, of course, you'll never see Zack Snyder's Justice League sequels. Although, he did say that if Netflix buys the rights to his version of the DC characters, he might continue the Snyderverse.
Yeah, we'll see though.
But I doubt Netflix will do that. I don't think they have the deepest pockets when compared to like the bigger studios.
And who knows how they would like Zack Snyder because of his Rebel Moon.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Netflix wants Rebel Moon to be their Star Wars.
And again, it all has to come down to part 2 and how that plays out, really. Because I know there's a lot of mixed reviews with part 1, but again, this is like the setup. So part 2 has to be like out of the park for this to kind of like compete with other sci-fi films. Like, it's gonna be hard enough to compete with Star Wars. You gotta at least compete with some of the other sci-fi stuff before getting up there to Star Wars.
Although maybe we do need a new sci-fi property to take the place of Star Wars, you know? Because I know Star Wars, you know, it's not quite as big as it once was.
It is having some issues as of lately, but there is a fan-made animated Clone Wars of the Battle of the Heroes.
I have seen that. The thumbnail on YouTube. I gotta watch that in its entirety.
It is really good. I saw that.
Do they use the same music?
They use, it's basically the same sequence as the battle, but because the fact they don't go over to the Sidious and Yoda fight, they took some liberties a little bit of the continuing fight sequence, basically, of Obi-Wan and Anakin, basically.
Do they use audio splices from the original movie, or do they do their own?
They use audio splices from the movie plus the Lego Star Wars. Because since it is since the Lego Star Wars characters, we're talking about the complete saga, where the voice actors come into play. Because the voice actors for both Obi-Wan and Anakin in the animated Clone Wars were also used in the Lego Star Wars. They used that for this anime. They also took some liberties by adding in a couple scenes as well. Couple of them were deleted scenes of sorts. One of them comes from the deleted scene of Season 6 Clone Wars that never aired. But it was shown and it had voices that they used in this YouTube fan made film.
Well, now I really gotta see this.
Another one was a deleted scene from the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith from a different fight that they used for this Obi-Wan and Anakin fight. It is a sequence of, I don't know if you saw one of the deleted scenes.
I don't think I have any memory of it, but I'll tell you this. The Clone Wars CG animated series,
Yeah.
that's on my list of shows I need to see, and I probably want to get to it this year.
Yeah. Or at least rewatch it, because I remember us watching like season 1 a little bit.
Yeah, back when it first aired.
Yeah.
I saw some of the Darth Maul episodes.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the show in its entirety.
Yeah.
But many people have said it expands on the lore and adds some new stuff.
Yeah, to Darth Maul, yeah. So he still has the Sith ways, but he's kind of like his own Sith, basically.
Yeah, because like he and Savage Opress, they go fight Darth Sidious.
Well, it's more of he creates his own army, basically, you could sort of speak. Because it's like, well, he was abandoned by Sidious, so he's going to seek... So he got into his own agenda, basically, of seeking revenge against Obi-Wan and anybody else, basically. So he kind of built his own army, and because of him kind of building his own army, Sidious like, you're now becoming a threat.
Yeah. But yeah, I got to see this show in its entirety because a lot of people have said very good things about it, you know?
Yeah.
The few snippets I saw during my teenage years, man, I don't know. Maybe I should have gotten into it back then, but I had different thoughts at the time.
Yeah.
But I am going to watch the show. This is one of my resolutions was to catch up on some stuff for the new year, you know?
Yeah, but so this fan-made film is probably one of the better, if not probably like top 3 fan-made Star Wars films. Because it used the Clone War animation style and just did the Battle of the Hero sequence. And they kind of did it to their own setup, basically. Using the almost, the same sequences, took some liberties in some areas, again, that were not seen in the original film, so they add on to it, basically, to kind of where it makes sense.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta see this because it's been popping up in my feed so much.
Yeah.
I gotta see it. But yeah, like I said with big sci-fi properties, I kind of feel like, Dune could be the new Star Wars because that's how they advertised Part 1.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though, too, with Dune and Rebel Moon, where it's like, you gotta start somewhere. I know you guys are trying to compete with Star Wars, but you gotta... Your Part 2s has to be out of the park.
Well, Dune Part 2 will probably knock it out of the park because it's looking like to be the biggest epic movie of this year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we'll kind of see how that goes. But I do want them to adapt the rest of the Dune series, even if the original director doesn't continue on.
Yeah.
They should adapt the rest because we need a new sci-fi property to take the place of Star Wars.
Yeah, because right now Star Wars is kind of like hitting its... it's kind of hitting its... low points right now a little bit because not a lot of people are liking the sequels and there's some sequel stuff like we're talking like the like the Rey and others.
I've heard they want to continue Rey's storyline.
Yep, Kylo Ren reported that he's not coming back
I heard.
Yeah, Adam Driver's not coming back basically. I forgot. I'm trying to remember John
Boyega, who played Finn.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think he said he didn't want to return.
Yeah, he doesn't want to come back because he didn't like how they treated his character in these movies.
Yeah, because I think he probably thought that he was going to be a Jedi, which I think that was the original intent too.
Yeah, we all thought Finn was going to be a Jedi.
Especially after the Force Awakens, clips and trailers.
Yeah, and the poster.
The poster too. Yeah, we all thought he was going to be a Jedi.
Yeah, we all thought he was going to be, and then they abandoned it completely.
Yeah.
It's one of the many frustrations with that trilogy.
Yeah. I did like, again, one of the few things I like out of that trilogy is Kylo Ren's redemption arc. He, to my eyes, carried that trilogy.
Although I think they had a different idea for him in the original script of Episode 9.
Well, yeah, where he still dies like he does in what we saw, but he would have died kind of like a Jedi, more of a Jedi, per se.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like because of the sequel trilogy, I need to check out the original expanded universe, because a lot of people say there's a lot of stuff from there that sounds better.
Yep.
And I guarantee it.
Yep.
But in terms of all the sci-fi stuff we've brought up, there's one in particular,
Yeah.
it's not finished yet, but I guarantee you it's going to get more attention than Dune and half the other sci-fi stuff, and that would be the Avatar sequels.
Oh, the blue people, yep.
Yeah, Avatar 3, 4, and 5, they're going to get way more attention than like half the other sci-fi stuff that's coming out.
That franchise seems like it's starting to, because they now got a game out now, because, I know they had...
Frontiers of Pandora.
Yep. I know they had an older game a while back that they made for the original Avatar film.
That was more of a tie-in game.
Yeah, that was more of a tie-in game. But it just seems like now, because after the second one, they got another game out, the Frontiers of Pandora, where it may try to, although because it's so long of making the films, like separations, basically, it may not. But they're trying to at least make, a sci-fi film that could expand, basically.
Expanded lore.
Yeah, basically. That could compete with other sci-fi films.
Oh, definitely, because like James Cameron with his Avatar movies, he clearly wants to leave behind a massive sci-fi franchise that people will acknowledge. He wants to kind of be up there with like George Lucas and all the other guys.
Yeah,
and he is.
Yeah,
but it's like he's clearly taking control of this entire Avatar franchise because he saw how Terminator turned out, and he doesn't want the same mistake repeated.
Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. But anyway, so...
And yeah, I mean, this is it. This is the end of the current DC cinematic universe.
Yep.
It's been a long ways coming. It had its moments, but, it is what it is.
We'll see what happens in the new DCs.
Whatever James Gunn has planned, at least. But last thing I'll say is that Mira never got to say, "Don't mess with a waterbender." Because someone did a parody line of that once. You would think they could throw that in as a funny line.
Yeah, no, that would have ripped off Last Airbender.
Well, anyway, that's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Yeah. See ya.
See you around.